Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Put Your Data to Work. This is a series where we get into how private capital firms are actually using AI day to day, and we do this across the whole deal cycle, not just one little section. My name's Kyle Turner. I run solutions engineering here at Affinity. And the idea of each episode that we've done in the past is pretty simple, right? We grab someone who lives in a different part of the deal, and then we dig into how that work is changing all around AI. Today, it's about due diligence, and I've got a great guest for it. Ben Collins is the Senior Director of Solutions Marketing at AlphaSense. Ben, thanks so much for doing this, and thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, Kyle, really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I think this is going to be a fun conversation today.
I think it's going to be fun too. And like you just said, we're going to keep it loose and conversational. And about halfway through, I'm going to stop talking, and then Ben's going to show us the product. And just like you guys, I'm excited to see how AI will read data rooms automatically. So I think we're going to see some really cool stuff today. So as far as what that'll look like today, well, we've got a few things. First, we'll set the stage on how diligence is changing. Then we'll get into how AlphaSense and Affinity fit together. And Ben's going to show that part live, right? So then we'll wrap up with what's coming in the next series as well. So hang tight for that. So let me start by setting that stage a little bit. Diligence is always taking weeks, right? And here's the thing. Most of the time, it's not spent finding information. It's spent pulling it all together. You've got things like earning calls, analyst reports, expert transcripts, filings, you name it, right? And every one of those things kind of lives somewhere different. So the real bottleneck has never really been access. It's always been synthesis, right? That's the part AI is changing. It actually changes the unit of work. Instead of bouncing between dozens of tabs and different tools, a deal team can really look at everything in one place. And that newer automation can go even further and read data rooms. And then they can surface the information, the data, the stuff that actually matters, which is really fun, right? And we're seeing that same shift on the sourcing side too. It used to come down to who you could pick up the phone and call. And now it's about finding the right company before anybody else does. The obvious markets are super crowded. That's not a secret. So the edge is really in the subcategories, the subcategories that are heating up and the subcategories that are heating up the fastest, right? And more teams are wiring AI directly into that live data through MCP. But of course, there's a little bit of a catch, right? And we hear all of this from all of our firms that we work with all the time. And that's that a lot of generic AI research is kind of just a black box. It's not always current. It won't always show you where the answer came from. And it will happily trust wherever that data was scraped from off the internet, right? But you've got money on the line, right? You are a private equity firm, you are a VC firm, you are a private capital firm out there. So that's not going to cut it. You need data that you can actually stand behind and be confident in. So, Ben, let's lean into that tension between moving fast and trusting what you're looking for. And then tell us what you're seeing on the AlphaSense side as well.
Yeah, a couple of things that I want to explore there, Kyle, and it's a great way to set the table for this conversation. So I guess firstly, I think you brought up something interesting around the MCP connectors. MCP is everywhere right now. I mean, it is the term or acronym du jour, and oftentimes there are a lot of benefits to the MCP approach, but there are also some potential drawbacks, which you alluded to. I think I get asked the question. I did a webinar recently around what does that ideal tech stack look like, and this was more focused on buy side investors, and I think they were probably teeing it up for, is this AlphaSense versus Claude? And really, I think what we're seeing in a lot of stacks is that the two can very happily coexist. In that Claude for day-to-day tasks, just verifying, high-level research or drafting an email, an internal memo is a perfect tool. It's great. We use it. I use it on a daily basis. That said, if I'm doing something that requires an output that I need to go in front of a management team or an investment committee, then I probably should have second thoughts about what Claude is generating and what tool I'm using for that application. And so, I think those are the questions that a lot of folks across the financial services landscape, whether it's PE investors, whether it's buy-side investors, investment bankers, are asking themselves: is which tool is right for this application? Now, as someone rewinding the tape a little bit, I used to be an investment banker, also did corp dev for a bit, so was frequently exposed to the pain points, and experience a lot of those firsthand that you have up on this slide. And what's remarkable, Kyle, is up until very recently, not a whole lot had changed in terms of the workflows, the processes, the tools that people use. Still very manual, still very spreadsheet driven. Over the last 2 years, maybe even like 12 months, though, the market has just completely fundamentally shifted and transformed. Right now, it's not AI is something that we need to explore. It's AI is table stakes, and we need to adopt it, or we're going to lose deals, and we're going to put ourselves at a disadvantage as a firm. So I think people recognize that. The firms that we talk to day in, day out, know it's something that they need to adopt, and they're just trying to do that calculus in their head, which are the right tools that they should use for the jobs that they're doing day to day.
Absolutely. And I think that something is really interesting that I've kind of identified here in the market is that when you think about AI, there are a lot of people that are scared of AI and there are a lot of people that are pro AI. But there's this middle ground where I think that a lot of people have kind of like, I don't want to say ignored, but they've kind of either skipped over or they're not even willing to jump into it. But what I've kind of caught is that when we're thinking about AI, and you had said like, okay, well, is this AlphaSense that I'm looking at, or is this Claude? And it's the same thing with us on this side. Is this Affinity that we're looking at, or is this Claude? And the answer is really yes, right? The end result, the product that comes out of Claude can be the data from either one of those different platforms. And it's not always that we have to trust the first version of the data that comes out of Claude, but it's that we learn from it, that we see what he or Claude, I call it a he, but we see what Claude is producing for us and we say, we can make this better, or I'm not sure that that's really what the story I was wanting to tell would be, or whatever it is. And we learn from that and then we do it better the next time, right? That is what AI is all about. I think back to the history and the first parts of the internet and how we started with these blank box browsers and then how AOL changed everything with just these little buttons. Hey, you need to see the weather. Hey, you need to see the news. Hey, you need to shop. Click here. And everything changed at that very moment. That's what we're seeing with AI as well. And it's so, so, so exciting.
It really is, and I think what's cool too is that there is this upskilling that I think practitioners across the industry, and this isn't just confined to financial services. This spans all sorts of different ways of life. There's this upskilling that needs to happen, and I think people, they're gradually recognizing that these are the skills. This is the craftsmanship of the future, and this is what we need to do and invest in ourselves, in our talent, in order for us to succeed as a collective. So yes, it's incredibly exciting. I think we at AlphaSense, we day in day out are talking to financial services as well as strategy teams at some of the largest companies in the world to help them figure out, okay, what are the tools they need to equip their folks to make decisions quickly. And really, that's really ultimately what we're trying to do: is power decisions, inform decisions more rapidly. And so, giving them the resources and all of the things that we have listed on this slide. This first bullet point catches my eye: earnings calls, analyst reports, expert transcripts, all of that captured under the AlphaSense umbrella, which is pretty exciting, pretty cool. And having that at your fingertips versus the old way of doing things and having to synthesize all that manually is just this step change that you rewind the tape not that long ago, just seems unfathomable.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. But and this is where it all comes together, right? I think of it as the old 1+1 = 3. Kind of corny to say, but that's really what's happening here, right? AlphaSense knows the market. Affinity knows your deals, right? The way Affinity works, it captures your pipeline and all the context behind every opportunity automatically. It makes it so there's no manual logging. That's the stuff people don't like, right? And that means that your diligence findings end up sitting right next to the relationship history. And so everyone on that deal is working off the same picture instead of their own version of it, right? So like I mentioned earlier at the very beginning, I'd rather us show it rather than me describe it and talk about it. So I'm going to hush up for a minute and turn it over to Ben. Ben, if you're ready, it's demo time.
All right, Kyle. So I will just do the caveat and put the asterisk next to you are this is something that you do day in day out far more adroitly than I will ever do. So I am not a solutions consultant by trade or background. So bear with me if I misclick or stumble a few steps. I just ask for your patience. But let's give it a shot.
Let's have fun with it.
All right, cool. So I'm going to share my screen and just walk you through a little bit about and talk a little bit about how AlphaSense can stream some of the workflows that we've been talking to here, Kyle. And just give me a thumbs up if you can see this. All right, excellent, great. So this is the login screen. When you first come to AlphaSense, you're going to see what this represents, this interface, and it normally doesn't have this prompt. This is a prompt that I had in as a placeholder. This is just the interface that you'll see when you log in. So you can see here, the first thing when you go into most AI applications is a natural language prompt box here. Okay, so that's the first piece. We're going to focus there for the moment. When I scroll down here, you're going to see some pre-built workflow agents. And Kyle, we're going to talk to those in just a minute here. But for the time being, we're going to focus on this natural language prompt. And what I want to do is really just almost start at almost like deal inception, right? We are looking at a potential industry during investment committee. Someone was kicking the tires around a potential idea. And me, as the junior person on the team, it's my responsibility to do some diligence, do some research, and figure out, is this something that's worth pursuing? Is there some upside here? Is there some white space in the market? So Kyle, a couple of weeks ago, you and I were talking about Dallas-Fort Worth car washes. So we're going to use that as the prompt here. Car washes, for those that are in the private equity industry, car washes, I think, most of them are owned by private equity at this point. So I'd be surprised if there's a ton of white space, but let's just use this as the illustrative example. So this prompt that I just pasted in, you don't have to be an expert in prompting. This is one of the questions that we get a lot is, how do I write a really cool prompt? I was talking earlier about how to use Claude and AlphaSense. Oftentimes I'll go to Claude and say, hey, I'm a private equity associate and I'm evaluating car washes in Dallas. Write me a prompt that's going to surface some intelligence that I can use to make a decision. And this is what it's going to generate here, Kyle. So this isn't me thinking through and spending hours and hours on a prompt. This is me and Claude just coming up with something that I think is going to generate, hopefully, a pretty powerful result. And I see
I love it.
It's probably something that you do as well.
I love it. Yeah, I always say that if I don't know how to ask something, I just ask him how to ask.
Yeah.
So it's that easy.
It's like one of those simple things that, like, oftentimes though is just overlooked. So when I click this, it's going to start thinking, and it's going to think for a few minutes. And so we're going to fast forward here, and I actually already have a report that hopefully you can see. Can you see this, Kyle? See you nodding?
Absolutely. It's nice.
So you can see here, yeah. So this is going to be packaged up, and it's a very detailed report that you can, and I'll scroll through it here. One of the cool things as well is that you can get this in a PDF format. So you can see here, the Dallas-Fort Worth Car Wash Industry Investment Analysis. This is a 20-page report, Kyle, that I generated in a couple of minutes. What's really awesome about this, though, a couple of things that I want to highlight as I scroll through this. So you can see here some of the key takeaways. Some really interesting takeaways. This isn't just these are really grounded in sources that matter as well. And I think that's one of the things that sets AlphaSense, and I know that's one of the things that sets AlphaSense apart, is that this content, anything in here is, I can click through and see the source. And so anything that's referenced, I can go into the system and say, okay, this is from a Jefferies research report from November of last year. And so this gives me their perspectives on the industry. When I look at this report, just in the PDF form, just scrolling through here, I have market size, geographic growth trajectory, demand drivers. I mean, really comprehensive in terms of what this output looks like. And again, really leaning into that curated content library that AlphaSense offers. So we've got, for those that don't know AlphaSense, we have a huge catalog of content, over 500 million documents and growing by the day. With that, we have 270,000 expert transcripts. So these are interviews with practitioners in the industry to get their ground level insights and perspectives. that are incredibly useful when making any sort of investment decision. And we also have broker research, SEC filings, trade publications, and all sorts of other really interesting things. You can search the open internet as well. The option that I selected had that off, but if you do want to open up the floodgates, that is something that you can do as well. But we think that confining it to the information that's in our platform generally produces the best results. So I'm just going to pause there for a second, Kyle. Pretty cool. Just wanted to get your reactions in terms of what this report looks like.
Man, I am thinking this stuff is gold. All of this information is super powerful. And now the Dallas side, I know like we are a little OCD about getting our cars washed. Just reading the first screens that you showed, I think to myself, I should have invested in car washes a long time ago. So this is really great information. And I love that, again, you're mentioning, we talked about it at the very beginning, but you're mentioning that it is referencing back on where it's finding it. So it does help me trust this data is valid and relevant. And if I need to go back to the source at any point in time, I can. I think that's huge.
Yeah, it is, and that's one of the things that you can get lost in the shuffle with the MCP experience, right? And that's something that we call out at AlphaSense is that access to the information isn't the same as intelligence, and so using our purpose-built retrieval layer, which understands the context of the question, understands the workflows of someone in private equity or corporate development. There's the blind spots are going to be few and far between with AlphaSense, whereas you'll have that question mark hovering over your head if you have that MCP bolt-on experience. So that's just a quick glimpse into how to use just a natural language prompt to get your arms around an industry very, very quickly. This is research that in my prior life, rewinding the tape would have taken me days, maybe weeks to generate. So, pretty powerful to have this at my fingertips in just a matter of minutes. Now, one of the things that often comes up is, okay, now that I've done a preliminary readout on this industry, I need to go back to the committee, present my findings. So that's something you can do in AlphaSense as well. So I just type into this prompt box again, build me a slide that captures the key trends in the car wash industry. I want to show headwinds, tailwinds, broad M&A themes, and some of the key players in the space. And I'm going to skip to the output here. But you can see here that I've got the key trend slide, and this is what it looks like in an actual Google slide format. So it might need a little tweaking, might need a little cleaning up, just in terms of your formatting. You can also layer in your own firm's formatting and so forth, and templates, and so it looks like the outputs you're used to. But pretty amazing that you can have this just in a matter of minutes that you can slot into a potential deck that you're using to justify looking at this industry in further depth.
Yeah, and from the lens of like a GP or even an investment committee that's needing to hear all of this information, this is great detail. This is so easy to read, and it makes me more confident in the market or where I want to put my investment.
Yeah, you nailed it there, Kyle. So just want to quickly move on and just highlight a few other things here. So this is our doc search capability. So if I go down the toolbar, here's our login screen. Then I go to our document search. And document search, it is what the title implies, right? So it's a way for you to search across that 500 million documents that I was mentioning earlier. So I'm going to look at, for the example here, age tech. So that's a pretty popular category right now. So I'm just going to pop this in, and I looked for it earlier, which is why it's pre-populating. And we're going to see some documents start to filter in here, okay? And what's interesting is, it's interesting that we see this broad mix, and you can see that there's a score that's associated with each in terms of the relevance, and that's a score that AlphaSense gives to each document. You can see the different document types here on the left-hand side as well, Kyle. So you have expert insights. Those are the expert transcripts that I was mentioning earlier. So we acquired a company, Tegus, 2 years ago, and that's where we got the 270,000 transcripts that I was mentioning. But we also have broker research, company documents, event transcripts. So are these from earnings calls, press releases, and so forth. So this goes on, and you can very easily just select, okay, I only want to see news. And so I can just select that, for instance. I could also look at internal content, which is pretty cool. So this is something where if you want to bring in content in notes from your CRM, or if you want to bring in notes from other sources, oftentimes those repositories have vast just knowledge that goes untapped during this diligence phase. And so being able to tap into that previous historical knowledge base is a huge advantage to anyone who's looking at a space like this. And so you can see here, the age tech sector, we actually popped up an expert call that was conducted recently. And so this is an interview that was with a CEO of a senior living facility or senior living. Sorry, my window's covering it. It talks about how there's a data management and tech integration in senior living. So this looks like a pretty interesting, relevant document to my purposes and my search. So if I click into this and do another search, and I'm just going to switch my window here. You can see here that I've asked, are there any, so I click into the document and then I asked, are there any market risks cited in this piece? So I can ask any question just to fast forward, get me the answer that I'm looking for. And you can see here that the AlphaSense system has given me a synopsis based on this expert call of the risks that were called out by this particular practitioner. So you can see that there's labor, economic challenges, just in terms of the staffing challenges, some tech risks as well. Some of the lingering pandemic risks are referenced in the call as well. So you can see very easy way just to look through documents, parse them down, and get to information and answers that you need very, very quickly.
That's so clean. It's so easy to read, and there's just so much great information right here too.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, and it's very intuitive. Unlike you, I'm not a techie. I don't I don't code anything by background. I'm like, even when I demo, I cross my fingers and hope for the best, and hopefully I'm not misrepresenting things or butchering it too badly here. But I mean, it is a very, very easy to use platform, as you were mentioning here, Kyle. And then one other thing that I did want to call out is our workflow agent library. And so we have one of the things that we really try and think through is how our users are using us on a day-to-day basis. And this could be private equity firms, buy-side investors, investment banks, corp dev teams, and then pre-build workflow agents to basically give them a shortcut to some of the common workflows and processes that they're doing on a regular basis. And so for the purposes of this exercise, I am going to look at, we're going to look at precedent transactions. Hold on. So, Kyle, one of the things that we've done at AlphaSense is really built these workflow agents, designed for the personas in mind. And so when we look at what are the normal steps in due diligence, one of the things is just to get a sense as to other deals that have happened historically, just to get a sense as to what type or profile of company is being acquired, and what is what are the multiples associated with that? And so you can see here, I'm looking at a precedent transaction review agent, and that's really just deal comps. And so I'm pulling this up, and I can look up any industry. So I'm just going to type in car washes. Oops, helps if I put in the space. And then it's going to think for a sec, and it's going to generate this report. So you can see here, we've got some of the key takeaways. So it gives you a quantitative and qualitative output here. So at the front, just gives you a little bit of flavor as to what's happened in the space over the past couple months, past couple of years. Really, the key takeaway being that private equity has been incredibly active in buying up all sorts of different assets. It goes through the methodology in terms of what the screening looks like. And then to go ahead, it actually gives you a nice little table that you can export into Excel. So this is something where you can get not just the qualitative elements that I was showing earlier, just in terms of what a market looks like, what are the key characteristics around headwinds, tailwinds, but also dive into things like the comps, deal comps, valuation, and things of that nature. So you can see here, we've got a pretty detailed set of deal comps related to the car washes over the past 6 years, 7 years. So wanted to just give you a quick snapshot of that. And then the last thing was really just highlighting one other element that I think is pretty cool, and that's channel checks. And channel checks really, most people when they hear channel checks, they think of buy-side investors. So just a hedge fund ahead of earnings, trying to get a sense as to where a company stands. Are there any surprises in store? Really just trying to get their arms around a company or market in advance of earnings season. But I think channel checks, when you look at the due diligence phase, can be incredibly valuable if you're looking to get those market level perspectives that are current, that hopefully help inform your investment thesis. And so if I go on channel checks, And these are really just searching the expert transcripts that I was mentioning earlier, and just scroll down. We're going to pick industrials and building materials for battery materials. Let's go for battery materials. And then we just run this, and this is going to show up in a grid. And here's what that grid looks like, Peter, or Kyle, sorry, just to fast forward and give you a glimpse. But really what this shows is the synopsis of the different interviews that were conducted related to this particular sector. So this is around the battery materials. So you can see some of the categories that are highlighted up top. And let me just move across here so you can see them. You've got current quarter performance, some of the demand trends, specific demand. And then if I scroll down, you can actually see here in the column on the left-hand side, which company they're actually relating to. And so you can see Albemarle, BHP, and Freeport McMoran, probably butchered that name, and others. So really just giving you that distilled, synthesized view of some of those perspectives related to the battery material space. As you're thinking through and doing diligence on a company, having those external perspectives really helps shape your thesis, and really can be that deciding yay or nay when deciding whether to push it through to investment committee with a recommendation.
Right. Love that. And again, like think about the power of when you combine this with the relationship intelligence and all the data that's also already existing in Affinity as well. It makes due diligence go so much faster. That means that you're moving through the deal a lot more faster, just because you have access to all of this great information. Diligence is done in hours versus weeks. It is just a total game changer here. And I have to also say that I love the way that your agents are built. I love the way that they're all those different tiles. This comes full circle, all the way back to that initial discussion that we were having earlier about how the internet started as this blank box. People were scared. They didn't know what to type in there. They didn't necessarily know what to say. And then all of a sudden, AOL comes around, and now all of a sudden there are these tiles. There are buttons and things of what to do, right? And you are doing that exact same thing. Affinity is doing the exact same thing with agents as well. And that's just helping people move faster, make better decisions, and just, again, less direction needed, and just it's just telling you what to do, which I think we really like.
Yeah, and Kyle, I think the fact that Affinity is leaning in so hard, I think it's amazing. And I think the combination of using tools, a CRM tool, or just thinking through like tools that are really, really aggressively like pushing the boundaries and thinking through the real world applications of how these are used. Those are the tools that you should be evaluating, right? I mean, this is something where they can make such a difference in terms of your day-to-day workflows. So Kyle, I showed a lot. Hopefully this wasn't too much. I wanted to just give you a little bit of a flavor as to some of the powerful capabilities within AlphaSense, really just scratching the surface in terms of what it can provide. But, in terms of what diligence looks like before and after, the tools that, AlphaSense and some of the other tools that are out there, I mean, it's really remarkable. But yeah, I mean, for folks that are looking to learn more, there's all sorts of resources out there, but hopefully at least this piques people's interest.
Absolutely. All right, Ben, thank you so much. This was such a great look at where diligence is, where it's heading, all this great stuff, right? And so we'll close up. Quick note for everyone watching. This session is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back through it, share it, watch it again, do whatever you need to do with it. And if you do have questions, of course, drop them in. Our team will field through them live or respond afterwards. But also, just want to call this out because these are super great. Stay tuned for our next webinar. That is going to be on Tuesday, July 7th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And so I hope to see you guys all there. But for now, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We'll all talk soon. Thanks again, Ben.
Thanks, Kyle.